What is up, comic fans? Welcome to the Legion of Comics. I'm Mark, and today I'm going to be answering my thoughts on why I think it is that The Flash has flopped at the box office. I've had this conversation numerous times since it's come out, and we've gotten all kinds of different perspectives. I wanted to weigh in on a video because there's kind of a lot to unpack here, and it's kind of interesting moving forward in terms of being a fan of superheroes in comics and film. So if you want to hear my thoughts on it, don't go anywhere. Check this out. Huge shout out to the homies over at Big Time Collectibles. Be sure to give them a follow on social media or check out their website at bigtimecollectibles.com. If you need anything cleaned or pressed, don't forget about my friend Justin over on Instagram. Let him know you found him via the channel. And a huge shout out, as always, to my local comic spot, the ABX Comics and Games. If you're ever in the Augusta area, swing by there, check it out. Tell them what's up. It's a fantastic shop, one of the oldest shops in the Southeast. Been doing it for a long time. So, like I said, The Flash was a huge, huge movie. It was supposed to be. It's been made years ago. This is a film that we actually first saw the trailer for almost 3 years ago. Well over 2 years ago at this point. I remember when DC did their online Fandom event, they showcased the first teasers for it then. It was plagued by all kinds of setbacks, delays, all kinds of stuff along the way. So it's finally here, and it's divisive to say the least, and it's underperformed massively at the box office. So I'm going to dive into some of the reasons why I think that is while I open a package from none other than Big Time Collectibles, because I'd rather do that than just sit here and just spew. So the movie itself has earned just over 200 million worldwide. It's looking to die off at about 300 to 350 million worldwide. As a matter of fact, last night they officially announced it will be available on digital purchase July 18th, making it just barely over a 1 month span as exclusive to the box offices. So that's unheard of. It's kind of unheard of. We're also seeing this trend where if movies do not perform very well, they rush them to digital. I mean, obviously that's because they're just trying to not necessarily get it out of the way, but they're just kind of piggybacking on all that marketing, on whatever little hype there is, and squeezing it for everything that they can. When it hits digital on July 18th, that does not mean that it will be streaming with your included subscriptions on things like HBO, or now it's known as Max, but you can purchase it to watch it. Typically, you can purchase it to watch it for a limited 2-day, or it's a high-end rental for the first little while before it becomes fully available to purchase and own. And I say own because if you get something digitally, you only own it until they take it off of that streaming service. So that being that's the first thing I wanted to point out. The box office is just terrible. The movie was reportedly to have like a roughly 250 million budget, not counting reshoots, delays, and promotion. So this movie had to come in big because it probably realistically had a budget of closer to $500 million. So they needed $1 billion hit, but they didn't get it. They didn't get close to it. So we'll see how it does when it hits streaming, how it does with digital numbers, and see what it can actually pull in on the far end of that. We don't really get given any kind of analytics or data to really show how well or poorly something does on streaming. And that goes across all streaming services. They don't really give us accurate numbers. They don't really want us to know for whatever reason. I'm sure it has to do with the money that they put into it versus the reward. So we'll see how it goes. But as far as why this movie didn't perform, there's numerous reasons. I think the first one, the big one, has got to be the elephant in the room. It just has to be DC's brand right now. DC has not had a favorable run at the box office since they started the current DCEU with Man of Steel. Despite how many people really champion for Henry Cavill now, they were not doing that at the release of Man of Steel or Batman v Superman, despite both of those movies having really good box office runs. They still were not as good as they hoped, and then the reception of the films were terrible. And it kept going. And as these films kept going, the reception got worse, and the studio started panicking and tampering with movies or switching gears or changing tones. Of course, there was the tragedy that was attached to Justice League, but eventually we got the Snyder Cut. But the vast majority of people in general audience do not even know the Snyder Cut exists. The fans do, and they show up en masse to support and push for it. It was phenomenal. But that's not the case with DC's brand. The brand itself does not have the draw power that Marvel does. They have over 10-year proven track record of delivering quality, fun, entertaining films. Really wasn't until the past year and a half that even that started falling off. And that really rolls over into the second point I want to make here. And that's really the superhero fatigue or losing the general audience. Some people say superhero fatigue is set in. Some people say it doesn't exist. It absolutely exists. There's a high time for everything and a low time for everything. It's madly popular, then it goes away. Everything comes in waves. It's the ebb and flow of things. So at a time not long ago, you can make any superhero movie and the fans trusted and showed up and participated. Now we're not seeing that as much, even with the big Marvel MCU. So if that's declining, of course you must expect the DC brand to decline at least at equal rate. And that's what we're seeing as well. So whether or not the fans still show up is one thing. We're always going to be there, good, bad, or indifferent. But the general audience, which they are dependent upon with these overblown budgets, is a whole nother story. And that's another thing that I would bring up is the budget of these films are killing their opportunities at the box office. They're not guaranteed $1 million hits, but they're being built out and advertised like they will be. So the budgets need to become respectable again. But between the branding, the superhero fatigue, at this point, there's easily an Ezra Miller problem for the Flash. That's definitely got to be point 3. Ezra Miller is troubled, to say the least. Numerous people have been not going to see it because of that. Countless people will see it when they see it because of that. And really, like that, I mean, when your lead character is something that's pushing people away from your film, that's a problem. They did everything that they could to try to solve that for this. They didn't have him going around doing marketing stuff. They kept him hidden in a basement somewhere, whatever, but that doesn't help your film, not having someone to be able to push it. We really had Sasha Calle, who played Supergirl, being the only one hitting massive press events. We had Ezra show up for the red carpet premiere where he was not answering questions, just being present. He did end up answering a couple questions, but this again, that's your lead character is the opposite of a draw for your film. So despite the fact of having Michael Keaton return a lot of fan service, it still wasn't enough to bring people there to put him in butts and seats at opening weekend. Now, in terms of another big factor, this was supposed to be what reset the DC movie universe. Now, to what degree we weren't promised, but everybody, including myself, went in with some kind of expectation that this would reset the DC universe and we would end this in some form of James Gunn's DC universe. Now, I gotta say, James Gunn's a little bit to blame for this. He was the one that put out that social media post kind of stating that, despite the fact this movie was made years ago and it didn't really have the opportunity to be such a universe-altering film unless they reshot the whole thing, at least a massive part of the end. It was never going to be that. But I believe a lot of people are kind of just done with the DCEU and ready to get to Gunn's era. We saw the bad reception for Black Adam despite the ridiculously high audience scores, and we're seeing that same thing happen again with The Flash. A terrible show, but the audience is seeming to love it. There are some split on this, and that brings us to the next point. It seems the main detracting factor from this film for audience members that were not into it is the poor CGI. There's no way to deny that the CGI was lacking. The whole scene in the opening with the babies falling from the hospital and all that, it looked cartoony compared to everything that we're used to from an impressive CGI sequence in a film. The director came out stating that this was on purpose as he wanted it to be kind of the world through Barry's eyes kind of thing. And he's kind of a childish character inside of this movie universe. But still, when everyone's leaving a movie like this that had a solid story, a phenomenal performance by an actor that people don't really care for, and all they're talking about is the CGI, that's bad. That's how much it did not resonate with your general audience. And you have to resonate with the audience. You have to. After that happened and the word of mouth started rolling, it doesn't stop. In a social media age where the internet determines everything in nanoseconds, you cannot have something pick up that kind of steam and expect it not to tank your project. It most certainly did. And I think another biggest factor in all of this would be the overhype of this film. I was caught up in it even. I went in with higher expectations, and I still enjoyed the film, but it's been getting billed for so long. It's been getting pushed for so long. Stephen King came out and said he loved it. Tom Cruise said it's his favorite superhero film. James Gunn said it's one of the best superhero films. Everyone who saw this movie ahead of time absolutely loved it. I think one of the big contributing factors in that is all the pre-screeners are told that what they are watching is not a final cut of the film. So when they watch it and they give their feedback to the creators of the film, they left out the part to say the CGI looks terrible because they assumed that it probably wasn't finished. So if that one thing could have been changed, if they would have known that this is how our CGI looks, they could have fixed it. That one thing. But between the superhero hype being gone, movies are gone across the board. Box office after box office film dropping this summer has absolutely tanked, from Little Mermaid, Elementals, The Flash. Guardians didn't perform what they wanted it to, apparently. Transformers didn't do as good as they wanted it to, despite the fact that they don't need it to. That franchise just is expensive commercials and they're just raking the dollars. Everything at the box office dropping this summer is underperforming, with the exception of Across the Spider-Verse. Tiny budget, good performance. It's sitting at roughly $500 million, which would be an unfortunate performance if this movie had a standard budget and wasn't animated. It's impressive for animated. It's still not Mario numbers, though. It's half of Mario numbers, and Mario is not a summer movie release. So it seems like everything's underperforming at the box office. Theaters are empty all the time at this point, and everyone's going through that same narrative as, I'll watch it later. I'll watch it streaming. I'll watch it streaming. Just want to remind everyone, we're not going to have theaters if this keeps up. They cannot keep limping along with one hand tied behind their back because everybody's content with just watching it when it comes home, because they're pretending like they have the same viewing experience at their house that they would at a theater. You don't. It's not the same. It's great to watch stuff at the house. Theater experience, so it can only be done in a theater. That's it. You will never find a more immersive atmosphere and an engaging way to watch a movie than sitting in pretty much a deprivation chamber in silence, huge surround sound, massive screen, and watching the film. And it's okay if you don't like going, that's fine. But don't think that it doesn't have an impact on the industry. It does. Too many people ever since the lockdown have had that mentality, and we're going to be losing movies soon. They cannot keep doing this. They can't afford to keep doing this. And it's going to suck when we get to a world where instead of having too many movies come out in one summer like we have right now, we have hardly nothing coming out all year. There's stuff just going straight to video. It's going to be tragic to watch these companies shut down, people lose their job, and us lose such a huge part of an entertainment industry that's been going since like the early 1900s. It's really going to suck. But that's pretty much where I stand with all of it. Gunn killing the DCEU with his announcement, so everyone's just waiting. Ezra problems, bad CGI, the brand is in trouble. And we still have 2 more films to go. Blue Beetle releases in September, and then we have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom at the end of the year. And I pretty much think they're both dead on arrival. The only, the only saving factor Blue Beetle might have, he's so lesser known character. People might not know what he is or who he is or where he fits in and go see it out of curiosity. And it's not in an overblown season. Aquaman, despite the first one making over $1 billion, I don't think anyone's going to really go see this one. People are kind of having more fun making fun of the brand and just hating on the brand than actually seeing if they like it for themselves. But here's what we have in the Big Time Collectibles package, and then we'll get out of here. Green Lantern #1, foil exclusive, gorgeous book, and hot off the press. Flash 800, Reverse Flash Fan Expo Dallas exclusive. And then Superman #4, the Black Death of Bizarro. That's right, it's not backwards on your screen. It is the Bizarro Death of Superman exclusive. So I snagged up some more of those when getting all of these. This is the second Green Lantern one I have the full set over there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of the Flash movie? I enjoyed it. I definitely am going to be seeing it again. Let me know why you think it tanked. And until next time, as always, I'm Mark, but we are Legion.